So if you think about it, the game of business, the name of the game is your individual culture. And the more I learned about culture, the more I realized why I sometimes had branches I loved to go to and other branches I didn't, because culture is everything. Culture defines the name of the game. It is what sets you apart from your competition. It's what sets you apart from everything completely and attracting employees and all that stuff. So culture's that name of the game. Just like, you've got Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, you've got all the different leagues, even with kids playing. It's the name of the game. But all games have to have rules, and business has to have rules. And you got to have rules around how you want things done, what you want done, when you want it done, everything. You have to have rules around everything. And when you have rules, just like in sports, the it's your job as the coach to hold people accountable. In baseball, we got umps. Well, in business, we got managers. Their whole job is to uphold the rules of the business and make sure everybody's playing the game and they're playing by the rules. The next part of a game is that you have to keep score. And so in business, we have to keep score. So financial statements are a great way to keep score, but it's like getting the score of the game after the game's over because you typically don't get financial statements until 5, 10 days after the month is over. Where if you're keeping individual scorecards, just like they do in baseball, individual scorecards, the stats on each player, they know how many times they strike out when they're batting against this particular pitcher that's left-handed versus a right-handed pitcher and all this different stuff. Well, in business, we need to know that as well about our individual employees and stuff. So we need to keep score. And then the last thing is we need people. We need people to play the game. And in business, we need sometimes a few people and other times a lot of people in order to achieve what we need to have done. So we need to have good people. We need to have great players. We need to have all the team members that we need. And if they aren't playing by the rules, they need to be benched. They need to be disciplined. And if they're not a good team fit or a good culture fit, they need to be traded to another team because just because they don't play well with me doesn't mean they won't play better with somebody else. And so this is why, when you look at the major leagues, they're constantly trading players around and stuff. But as you look at business, depending on the age of your business and the size of your business, all those things are gonna be at a different level. So, as I watched my kids and my grandkids play T-ball, and they're now in Little League and playing coach pitch and stuff like that, the rules from T-ball were very simple. So a small business, it's very simple. There's a lot of hand-holding in a small business. The owner or the coach was more involved. He was out on the field and running the bases with the players. Where once they get to coach pitch, it's bigger and the rules change, and the coach is now standing by the fence or maybe the first or third base line, or he's maybe a little involved by pitching, but he's not out there running the bases with the players and helping them field. And as they go up into the different levels of baseball, the rules continue to change. They can now steal or and the coach gets more and more involved in a strategic manner to where it's about winning. It's about who we put where and who's the best to have in this situation and what's going on. So the game changes as the business gets bigger. So you have to always be changing in your business. So that's why I came up with my $1 million climb is what I realized is in order for me to play the game of business, there were 12 things I had to look at in order to achieve my first million in revenue. And then every year I would relook at these 12 things to make sure that they were scalable to the next 1, 2, 3 million, 4 million, whatever that was for me to get to the next level. And so, Will my policies and procedures or my standard operating procedures work for 5 employees? Yeah, but will it work for 10? Will it work for 20? Will the process for handling an onboarding of a new hire work when I'm hiring 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 a month? Will the process of, selling to the customer work if I have 5 salespeople, if I'm selling 100 agreements a month as it or 1,000, so those things need to be relooked at over and over. As the business grows, does the culture change? Do the core values need to be relooked at? All those different things need to be looked at and made sure and tweaked to make sure that you can continue to scale and grow your business as your business grows.